Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці.
Good health to you, fellow Ukrainians. Today we celebrate the professional day of our border guards in Ukraine. They were the first to face the occupier in the east. They are holding the border firmly from Volyn to Kharkiv region, and they will definitely return to all points of our state border in Donbas and Crimea. The day will surely come when Ukrainian border control for passengers at the international airports of our Donetsk and Simferopol will once again be quite commonplace. The invader will definitely not succeed in taking away our peace, which is a natural part of the Ukrainian character. Peace and the desire for freedom for our entire state, for all our regions, cities and communities. We will definitely gain it. I would like to especially celebrate our border guards who, together with all the defense and security forces of Ukraine, are defending our country and our people in the battles in Donbas. The most fierce areas: Marinka, Bakhmut, Liman. Thank you, warriors. I would also like to mention the fighters of the Lutsk border guard detachment who are defending the Avdiivka direction. Very powerful. Thank you. Southern directions where the units of our border guards always effectively subtract the occupier. Thank you. Thank you to the servicemen of the Kharkiv, Sumy and Chernihiv detachments who are defending our border with the terrorist state. Thank you to everyone who strengthens our border in Volyn, Rivne, Zhytomyr and Kyiv regions. I spoke with French President Macron. As always, it was a long and meaningful conversation. We are coordinating our positions to give even more strength to our soldiers and to speed up the end of the war with our victory. I am grateful to France and to Emmanuel personally for supporting our country and our people. Now, in this conversation, Mr. President has confirmed the supply of exactly what I mentioned in the previous conversation. The speed and specificity of the response is very important. It is something that greatly enhances our capabilities. Thank you for this arms package. It is very important that Russia receives even stronger signals that the world will not forgive any of Russia's acts of terror, and that as many global players as possible are absolutely principled in upholding the sanctions regime against Russia for terror. I thank each and every person in the world who helps strengthen the isolation of terrorists and stop any supply of weapons and their components to terrorists, who works to block the Russian military-industrial complex and to strengthen the defense capabilities of the whole of Europe. Following this week, I would like to especially thank our partners from Denmark for Caesars, Slovenia for armored vehicles, Spain for tanks, and Germany for additional defense intentions regarding armored vehicles and shells, and for air defense. I'm grateful to America for funding in the amount of $1 billion and 200 million more to support our budget and resilience. I'm grateful to the Netherlands for the parliamentary decision to train Ukrainian soldiers on advanced Western systems. I am grateful to Italy for its efforts to rebuild our country as soon as possible. I am grateful to Croatia for its new assistance in the treatment of our defenders after being wounded in combat. Remaining as united as possible, maintaining the greatest principled stance to protect our common values and implementing defense agreements as fast as possible, all together in Ukraine, in Europe, in the world, we will be able to prevent Russia from protecting the war and restore a normal, just peace. Glory to all who are in combat for Ukraine. Blessed memory to all our heroes of different times who gave their lives for independence. Glory to Ukraine.
Слава Україні!
Current Time and Radio Liberty investigated the audio recording of a conversation, presumably by a Russian billionaire Roman Trotsenko. His interlocutor, as journalists assume, is another Russian businessman Nikolai Matyushevsky. The conversation took place during Trotsenko's vacation in Bali. The 40-minute conversation began with plans to escape abroad forever, and then the interlocutors moved on talk about Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the situation inside the country.
Unfortunately, Russia, which we love so sincerely, ended up in the clutches of some idiots, which profess some strange compositions of the 19th century. This will not end well. It will end in hell. People will kill each other on the streets of Moscow. It's just a matter of time before it happens.
Trotsenko is one of the businessmen relatively close to Vladimir Putin. Matyushevsky is also an entrepreneur and a longtime friend of Trotsenko. According to journalists, they received a recording of their conversation leaked to the network by email.
Authenticity is not in doubt, in general, and attempts to refute were rather sluggish. But not once did they express any feeling of indignation at the war itself. Those crimes committed daily by the war criminals in Ukraine. They are worried about the problems created for their business, the loss of money, the loss of ties with the West.
Quite expectedly, Matyushevsky said that this conversation did not take place. He noted that allegedly the last time he spoke with Trotsenko was in 2022. Also, at first, he openly criticized the authorities and later retracted his words. And Russian producer Iosif Prigozhin, whose telephone conversation with billionaire Farhad Akhmetov also appeared on the network earlier.
I am so disappointed. This public, I am shocked. It is no longer possible to justify oneself before society. Look at the Chinese policy, how brilliant it is.
In the same conversation, Akhmetov argued that Putin was never a real leader, but rather a media hero. Experts admit that the leaked conversations may also be a special operation of the disgruntled political and military elites of Russia.
Those who are trying to change the situation in Russia. But it will be extremely difficult to do this. Because indeed the machine built there is quite powerful. It is repressive and power and security and judicial, corrupt, clearly satisfying those who are now in power.
Oligarchs and businessmen also mention in their conversations that 2023 is the last chance to escape from Russia. That is, there is no question of overthrowing the dictatorial regime. But who really should be afraid of Putin and his entourage? These are militants from private military companies, of which there are already dozens in Russia.
They create these PMCs for the redistribution of property, because when the defeat becomes already clear, this will cause inevitable political changes in the bunker, the departure of Putin and his group, and in Russia this means the zeroing of huge property.
According to analysts, Russia is heading for the abyss on all counts. As the war enters its second year and Western sanctions tighten, Russia's government revenues are shrinking and its economy is slipping into a long-term regression, the Wall Street Journal reports. The path to victory is to arm Ukraine with F-16s. This is how the head of Ukrainian diplomacy Dmytro Kuleba reacted to the missile terror of Russia. On April 28, the Russian army launched a massive strike on peaceful cities. The press service of the Ukrainian Air Force Command said. Civilians in Uman and Dnipro suffered the most.
Missile strikes killing innocent Ukrainians in their sleep, including a 2-year-old child, is Russia's response to all peace initiatives. The way to peace is to kick Russia out of Ukraine. The way to peace is to arm Ukraine with F-16s and protect children from Russian terror. Dmytro Kuleba, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, on Twitter.
Kyiv received from the Allies almost all the promised equipment. However, discussions on the provision of F-16 military aircraft are still ongoing, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said. This issue will be further discussed with partners in the Ramstein format.
More than 98% of the combat vehicles promised to Ukraine have already been delivered. That means over 1,550 armored vehicles, 230 tanks and other equipment, including vast amounts of ammunition. In total, we have trained and equipped more than 9 new Ukrainian armored brigades. This will put Ukraine in a strong position to continue to retake occupied territory.
According to the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, during the meetings within the framework of Ramstein, the key trio of Kyiv's requests, air defense, shells for all systems, building up an armored fist, tanks and vehicles of different classes. These are 3 priorities that do not exclude everything else, says Reznikov. But the topic of peace talks with Russia in the Ramstein format is not discussed.
Negotiation could be, and we will sit at the table with our partners on our side, and we will discuss with the Russians reparation, restoration, compensation, and decision of the International Tribunal about the war crimes from the Kremlin mafia gangs.
Earlier, the American publication Bloomberg published information that French President Emmanuel Macron plans, together with China, to develop a peace plan that would help end Russia's war against Ukraine.
Macron instructed his foreign policy advisor, Emmanuel Bon, to work with top Chinese diplomat Wang Yi to develop a program that could form the basis for future negotiations. Anonymous source in the publication of the American edition Bloomberg.
But when the time comes for real talk about peace, Kyiv will still declare it, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine told the public, and Ukraine's priorities are fully reflected in the 10 points of the Ukrainian peace plan.